Good afternoon, a very warm, very hot, shall we say. Welcome to everybody. For those who have dialed in on such a hot day, thank you for being here. You have joined the Flexa Careers webinar on Career Pivot Playbook. Now, this has been their most popular thought leadership event so far this year. So a career pivot is clearly something that's on a lot of people's mind. And we are delighted to be here to help you navigate some of the challenges that thinking about career change might bring. Most of us have had a moment where we realize the career that we have built ourselves over the years perhaps no longer serves us. It's not what we want right now in our lives. Something maybe isn't working for you or isn't sustainable anymore. Now, coming to that conclusion can feel exciting. It can also feel absolutely terrifying, or perhaps a combination of the two at any given time. But it's important to remember that wanting something new doesn't mean that you have to start from scratch. You will have built up numerous skills and knowledge across your career, no matter what the career you're coming from or wanting to move to. You will have lots of transferable skills. It doesn't mean throwing everything away that you've already worked for. It just means being really honest with yourself about what isn't working anymore and having the courage to figure out what comes next. So today I'm joined by an absolutely brilliant panel who have been working through their own career pivots, and they're going to share what that process has looked and felt like for them to help you navigate yours really well. We're going to be covering everything from how to know when it's time for change, how to talk about a career pivot to employees without it working against you, and how to make the leap without putting yourself under impossible pressure. So whether you're thinking about a career change for the first time or already in the middle of one, we hope that you're going to take a lot of golden nuggets away from this. So my name is G Fittit. I work for St. James's Place Financial Advisor Academy, and we are one of the opportunities that feature on the Flexa Careers job opportunities, as well as some of our panelists. So without delay, I'm going to introduce you to the other panelists here today. Isla, let's start with you.
Thank you, G. We know one another quite well. I changed careers. I started off life after 7 years at university studying economics and law in a law degree. And I think, when we're younger, we start a career, don't we? So found myself in a law job, had a family, took a break, a couple kids came along, did a little bit of Pilates teaching and a little bit of working in retail as well as HR. And then thought, you know what, time for a career that I'm proud of, that suits me. So I retrained to be a financial advisor with St. James's Place, and here we are.
Fantastic. So yeah, we do know each other well, hence we're from the same company, but Isla will share more detail about her personal story through the Academy just as we go through the questions and answers. Samantha, we'll come to you next.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm Sam Cross. So I'm very, very similar to Isla. Had a family in the middle of COVID, was also a teacher at that time. So you can imagine during COVID, teaching became not only my children, but all my students and so on from home. So then decided that teaching wasn't for me anymore, and am now a project management apprentice with BAE Systems here in the UK. So bringing all those transferable skills that you spoke about at the beginning, which has been amazing. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Amazing. And Rob?
Hi there. Yeah, so I'm Rob Fulford, based at SAP, a very large enterprise software company, but I have a background from academia. And so I made a bit of a career pivot a few years back into the talent, employer branding and diversity inclusion space. Just really excited to be here and be sharing a bit more about that.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's get into the questions. So from an audience participation perspective, we would love to hear from you. So please do type your questions into the chat function. What I have is some structured questions I'm going to ask the panel, which we are sure the answers are going to be helpful to you. And then once we finish those structured questions, we'll come to your questions. So as you think of them, write them in the chat and we will come to them in a matter of moments, I guess. So first of all, before we get into the practical details, I would love to start somewhere more personal. So wanting a career change can bring up a lot of complicated feelings, from excitement to guilt, as we said right at the beginning. But why do you think so many people stay in careers that are no longer right for them, even when they know something is wrong? So Rob, I'm going to come to you with that one first.
Yeah, this is a really good question, and it really did get me thinking. And for me, a lot of the things that were keeping me in that old in my previous academic career were the investment I'd already made, right? There were so many years of the learning that had happened. And especially in academia, you're getting very, very deep into a very niche topic. And so, you know, you're left thinking, I've created this, this investment, this depth. I've gone this far. And I actually had a lot of guilt around it because, I had managed to make my way into a role that was, very well suited to what I had researched and what I'd learnt about. And, I felt very privileged to have got that far. But then, managing that with my feelings of what I knew that I wanted and also the learnings that you have around what that career actually looks like in reality, um, it brought up a lot of complicated feelings for me. And so, that investment really kept me there. And also some of the guilt around I'd be letting the people down around me that had also supported me in that journey. And there was a lot of really deep investment on that path. So yeah, I guess the investment and the guilt, those were things that really kind of kept me. And you really have to sort of work your way through that in order to think about what you do want and make that move.
And how long would you say it took you to first think about it to actually do
I
something about it?
think it was probably a year to 18 months. And what really helps is really knowing the true extent of the role. So, I'd gone through a PhD sort of in the postdoc zone, beginning to teach, beginning to lead topics, beginning to really work on, more heavier weight, or to get into the reality of university of life that you really don't see earlier on. And so sometimes you only know what the job is like when you're in it, right? Or you only know what the sector is like, or the organizations are like, or what the culture is like when you're there doing it. And so as that began to dawn on me and as I saw the paths ahead, that was when I began getting this sense of what is right for me versus not right for me.
Wow. And it's so interesting, isn't it? Sort of a 12 to 18-month journey. And I'd say that's quite standard when it is a career change, a career pivot. Certainly, it takes that time. So it's getting outside your comfort zone, being brave enough to start some conversations and start some decision making. And it doesn't have to be overnight whatsoever. So, Sam, how about
So
you?
for myself, it was definitely guilt on, that young lady that left school and went to university in Australia and had these glamorous ideas that teaching was going to be all that she was going to do for the rest of her life, and it was going to be this perfect career for a family because I was going to have time off with my kids. But then the reality hit, that no, you're working till 9 o'clock at night after having started at 7:30 in the morning. You're marking till all hours of the evening on weekends. You're going on school trips with students, so you're being pulled away from your own family. And as Rob said, it wasn't until I was in it that I actually realised that glamour, that ideal, isn't actually what it is. It's a very, very different career than what I was led to believe. So yeah, the guilt came in. There was a lot of fighting with myself, because I couldn't really see that it was making me unhealthy at the same time. There was a lot of struggle there with that side of things. So my health deteriorated, relationships started to become a little bit harder, and it was that responsibility as well, having had a child and then gone back, so contractual responsibility within the school as well. So not only that responsibility of looking after a family, but also that side of that employer-employee relationship that I needed to uphold. I didn't want to have to do something that might look bad on me in the future. So that came into it, but I was really, really lucky that my husband was already working for BAE Systems, so he pointed me in the direction of the apprenticeship, but I had to also become confident that I could do it as well. I'm not a young chicken. I'm in my 40s now, and I'm doing an apprenticeship with 19, 20-year-olds. So it's very much a confidence thing that I've definitely had to find within myself, that I can do this, and be a role model as well, which is great.
Fantastic. Great way to look at things. And I feel like teaching comes with a lot of pride, a lot of duty to your students, and a very much a rewarding career. So I guess there are strings pulling on your heart from that angle, as well as the health reasons and the lack of work-life balance that you mentioned.
Definitely. And that almost that role model, but then having to pivot the role model in a different direction. So teaching's very much about showing students how to be great adults in the world. And for me, I'm now being a different role model. So I've had to change my mindset on it. And now that I've found that shifted mindset, I'm actually really, really happy I've done it. And I'm still getting what I was getting out of teaching, just in a very different way.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. And
I'm
Isla, how
loving
about
these
yourself?
answers, and I can reiterate, Rob, I loved you talked about the investment, because you think it's a waste of time. Like the years I've done in this career, I've just wasted it if I pivot. I went to a school where it was all about becoming a doctor and a lawyer, and there I was, a lawyer, could go back to law, okay, after I had this career break after children, but pivoting. But those years I spent studying and training, they're just wasted. So that was that mental shift as well. And to pick up what Sam said too, I retrained late 30s, I'm now early 40s. I thought I was too old to enter finance. You think you're too old. So it's all these things. I've spent years doing this. I'm far too old to try something new that's completely different. And it's scary. You're entering a huge world of uncertainty, and a huge barrier is comfort. It's the fear. What, am I not good at this? And you've had that investment, like Rob said, you've done this. I know I can do this. I know I can earn X. And finances are a big part of this too. When you're paying your bills in an uncertain world, to suddenly pivot and change and not be 100% sure, whether that is you do take a reverse in your earnings, or you go out self-employed, or you start your own business, anything like that. There's just a change around certainty as to earning potential. We've all got bills we're going to have to pay. So I think people stay in their comfort zone out of fear and uncertainty with all this. And that's why these conversations are so important, and hearing people on different paths and the different options people have out there to do that. So I completely echo what everyone else has said.
Fantastic. And you mentioned age, and a couple of you mentioned that feeling too old to make the change. And I just want to make the point of, retirement age is drifting further and further away from us. It will be 57 before we know it, to get the state pension, that is. Obviously, private pensions, you can retire sooner than that. But I feel like we are a generation who will be working later. We're going to be living a lot longer than our predecessors. And so we're never too old to make a change, and actually having something that does align with who you are today is probably the most important thing.
And living well for longer, G. Like we're living healthily longer. So we have capacity and a lot of things to share.
Yeah. And Sam, you mentioned, it was detrimental to your health in the end, your previous role. So it is taking on board those things. Yeah, having a long life and a healthy life is certainly and mental health as well as physical health is as important. So how do people, with all of those things that we've just discussed, know the difference between it just being a bit of a rough patch that will pass, or genuinely this is a signal that I need to make a change and do something different? What should they be paying attention to know the difference? I'll go to Sam first.
Okay. I definitely found a change in my priorities, and my moral compass was starting to move away from, is this how I want to spend the rest of my life? Do I want to be somebody who only sees their kids on weekends, or do I want to actually be there? Last week I had the best time at my daughter's sports day, which I wouldn't have gotten to go and do as a teacher, because the school wouldn't have given me the time to go and do that. So that was a definite big one that I noticed for myself. And then the feelings towards the job. I started finding myself no longer being able to give excuses for certain things. Why is it that all my friends can go and do things and I'm not allowed to? Why is it that, my husband gets family leave, but I don't get family leave. Like it sort of started to become very much a feeling, but also a lot more to stand upon that it's not right for me, this career anymore. And that's where talking about it became really important instead of bottling it up. I was really, really lucky. My husband sort of said to me, let's talk about it. Let's see where you want to go, what you want to do, instead of it just being a straight off the bat decision. It was very much conversation after conversation. It wasn't something that we just decided overnight. And it happened in increments.
Yeah.
So that I could really find what I wanted to do, because I didn't want to be pivoting every couple of years. I wanted it to be, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm doing. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's a great answer. Rob, how about you?
Yeah, it's a good question because, work is work, isn't it? Like there are going to be good and bad days, and there can be tough patches where, whether it's a project or whatever, work is hard. I think what really what was important for me was it was a gut feeling, right? It was about the environment for me. It was about the culture, and it was about the way forward. So I knew I had confidence in my own skills. So in terms of what you should pay attention to, I was paying attention to the kind of work that I enjoyed, right? I knew I loved my research, being analytical, writing, solving problems, but I was rationally then thinking about what opportunity is it going to give me down the line. And I knew that I wanted to make a bit more impact in the real world. I wanted to do applied work, and so I think you have to pay attention to those kind of gut feelings about the wider environment. And yeah, to bring it back to what you should pay attention to, and just trust the things that you enjoy. So think about the transferable skills. There was a question, I think, from someone watching about, if you've only ever worked in one field, like how can you tell, what it is that should push you out? And I think, if you have only worked in that one field, again, that you have to have that faith and listen to what you enjoy doing, and know that it will transfer to other sectors and other organizations and other environments. Because you don't ever know what life is going to be like in that next pivot. It may not be one pivot. You may have to do a few moves. So yeah, for me, it was very much a gut feeling, and you have to trust what you're good at and what you enjoy doing, and listen to the things that are making you uncomfortable.
Absolutely. I heard a term that is the navel gazing, isn't it? It's looking at yourself and analysing yourself and listening to your gut, ultimately, like you said. Really important. Now, Isla, you were in a slightly different position because you were already on a break.
Yeah.
So was it straightforward for you? Was financial advice the first step back in, or did you try a few things?
No, yeah, I tried a few things. It's funny when I read this, like it feels like a simple topic. But I mean, these are big decisions. Like I stepped back and I was like, right, what do I want to do with my life? You're like, brilliant, I could do whatever I want. And oh my gosh, it's a really overwhelming question. But so what I did was I kind of really focused on what I really like to do. This takes some time, don't get me wrong, because it's quite difficult to kind of dig deep, and you get imposter syndrome and you lose a lot of confidence when you have a bit of career break, because you feel you've lost it. I mean, it's daft, but you do feel like you've lost absolutely everything rather than gaining. You don't actually lose anything, you just gain things in life, don't you? But what I did was, so I worked in employment law, then I worked in HR, retail, and Pilates. Totally feel unrelated, but they're not. When I really thought about it, I'm dealing with people in intimate capacities and intimate topics in every single one of these. That's what I like. Brilliant. I like I like numbers. I studied economics. Marry them. Here we are. But that's me put something that took me quite a long time to think about in quite a succinct way. But on this point of hitting a rough patch, so even when I was in law, when I decided to have a family, if I can pick that up, was I just took a really long-term view. If I'm lucky enough to be a retired lady one day in a few decades' time, how do I feel if I look back? And I wasn't happy if I continued in the status quo. So it's a really simple point, but big decisions is look at yourself, think about yourself. If we're fortunate enough to get there in a healthy way when I'm an old age pensioner, am I going to be happy that I didn't have the confidence to try something that suited me in my life? Like Sam, I have 2 children and I have non-negotiables now, and this career fits them. And if I was in law, I wouldn't. I couldn't. I couldn't. I mean, I've got my daughter's drama showcase this evening. I'm going to leave here at 4. I couldn't have done that in my legal job. So for me, it's one, think about yourself if we're lucky enough to be old. Look back. How do you really feel? Be honest with yourself. And then 2, what's really important. And for me, it's being there for my kids at these big, in their wee lives and these big points. That's the life I want to lead. It's my life. I have one innings. This is what I want it to look like.
Absolutely. So my next question is around, the hardest thing sometimes is what next? You may have identified that what you're in or were previously in isn't going to suit you, the current or new version of yourself. But knowing what to go to or finding that right opportunity, it might not be the first thing. And Sam, it sounds like you did quite a lot of due diligence on your side. You took some time to explore. So how do people figure out what they want and what the options are? What was your process?
So we did a lot of opportunities because I love learning. It's so crazy, but I just love learning new things. So I went and did some coding courses, and then I went to the skills boot camp, which is a government-run program which gives you all new skills in all different things. So I did some cyber security courses, and I went and did a project management course, and just sort of worked it out. And the great thing about those is they're in the evenings, so you can put the kids down, get online, do them. You can study a lot of them at your own pace, which is fab. That was the bit that I loved. So yeah, I took that time to just have a try at different things, and really, really lucky that I was able to do that over a period of time. I didn't have to rush.
Yeah, definitely. And how about you, Rob? How did you go about finding your next challenge?
Well, there were 2 moments, because I had to pivot almost into academia, which was really where I had to argue for the role, right? So this is a situation where you sort of feel, who else in the world can do this? Who's got the background? And you advocate for yourself, and you have to make that case. And I think that relates to one of the questions in the chat, which is about getting your foot in the door. So, and that takes a bit of homework. You do have to look at your skills. You do have to look at what is transferable, and no one else is going to advocate for you, right? So you do have to make that case really strongly. What I would say is, when you really want something, it does show. So having worked as a recruiter in an interview, like, you can tell when someone is bringing that genuine energy and motivation for something and really, really wants it. And so that's really powerful. So, obviously, if there's a pivot point and you're having to make some kind of jump, knowing that you're going to have to maybe create a bit of an argument, create some energy, and really advocate for yourself is really strong. But the other sort of flip side to that is, when I left, I realized that this was a much bigger field that I was moving into. I didn't know the future directions, and I kind of knew that I was going to have to do many pivots to find, where I was going to play. Yeah. And so with that, I ended up starting at the bottom, essentially, going into something that I knew that I was going to learn from the ground up. It was a very small company, 360 recruiter role, business development, filling the roles, very rough and ready. But I knew that was going to give me the best grounding of an experience to learn the craft. And then you just trust that because you're probably coming with 10 or 15 years of different life experience, different skills and experience, trust that you'll probably progress in a different or quicker way than maybe the people around you. So there's like a couple of examples.
Amazing. And Isla, you mentioned that you tried after law a number of different things. So how did you eventually land with us with St James's Place Academy?
Yeah, I kind of sometimes feels quite crude to talk about this being, I don't know, British. We seem to be, I want to earn my own money. I wanted to have that independence. I'm married happily, I think. And my husband was paying the bills and that was fine. But it just, I go back to it. I just thought of myself as an old lady. How would I feel? 7 years at uni I studied, and then I was taking this career break, and it just, I just call it an itch. There was something in me that was itching and I needed to scratch it. I needed to study. I needed to learn. There was something that was really quite unfulfilled. But also within that, I had a nice life. I had the roof over my head. I've got 2 healthy children, and happily married, like I said. So it wasn't just any job. It had to be something that fit. And I touched upon it already. It's this common thread of people in intimate capacity that I really liked. So when you think of that, going, gosh, where do I go? Pull it right back, going, right, be selfish. This is my life. What do I want? One, I want to earn money and stand on my own 2 feet. That's okay. And 2, I want to enjoy what I do and then also fit it around my family. So think of the common thread of skills. But the main thing I always say to people in helping figure out where to go is to talk to people. And that's what I did. So when I was teaching Pilates, I had quite a breadth of client base. I talk to people. I talk to women in finance, and that's where that kind of shared stories. And I said to one of them, "I'm too old." She was like, "You're really not. No one will care." And she was like, "We need more females in finance." So if I can give everyone that's listening one piece of advice is go and ask questions. Don't be scared, and tap up people in likes of LinkedIn going, "I'm thinking of this area. Would you mind jumping on a Zoom with me?" And I think you might be quite surprised at how many. I mean, you'll get a few people that ghost you, but you might have some people that pick up and go, "Yeah, totally." Talk to people. Most people are good people and like to help.
I would echo that 100%. People do like to help, and they like to talk about they're experts in their life, their career, their experience, and sharing that, it gives you a sense of pride.
Absolutely.
And helping is a positive feeling for people, so they do. And in the academy there's a saying, isn't there, Isla? BBQ, be brave quicker.
Yeah.
And that's just all about getting out of your own way, take some small imperfect action that means that you're making progress. So if that means a few outreach messages on LinkedIn and see what comes back consistently until you've got what you need, and then you can change the action to something new. Just do it. Just don't hold back, and you'll be surprised at the positive responses that you will get.
Definitely.
So we're going to talk about transferable skills now, and I feel like this one is quite important. And I love that you've all moved from something that on paper doesn't necessarily look like it correlates. Now, from a recruitment perspective, Rob, often roles, you get overwhelmed with CVs, and sometimes you can be a bit guilty of saying, oh, they've got relevant experience, so they'll be at the top of my list. But I feel like that we're moving away from that, aren't we? And actually we are looking at more of a skill set, like you said, and the energy that somebody brings, rather than it being a perfectly correlated CV these days. So that's great. So how can people, first of all, articulate and identify their transferable skills that they have built, particularly when those skills don't necessarily, as I say, correlate perfectly on paper? What do people tend to undersell, and how can they get better at singing their own praises? Rob, I'll come to you as the recruiter expert.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's skills everywhere at the moment, obviously, and the technology and AI that is revolutionizing recruitment at the minute is all about skills. You can do a lot of work, and you can use the AI tools actually to help you identify, based on your experiences that you've had with your CV, what skills are there. AI can help you pull out what transferable skills may be there. Look for the soft skills as well as the hard skills. Look for the kinds of you have to take it down to a task level sometimes. I had to think quite hard and realize where I get my enjoyment in the problem solving and the data work that I still really enjoy in my current role where I found myself. So yeah, it's a bit of work, but it's and especially in this landscape of the new technologies coming in the application landscape, keep having that personal narrative and being able to tell your stories, I think is still and always going to be really powerful, for when there's a human in the loop of the process, as there always should be. Be really ready to tell those stories of success and your outcomes, and be able to articulate in your natural language the skills that you use.
Love that. Really great advice, and I couldn't agree more. So Sam, coming to you, you took some time, you educated yourself, you did a huge number of courses. Was that a deliberate part to give you confidence, or like how did you articulate, or how did you feel about that coming from teaching?
So for me, it was just trying new things, because I think I'd become so straight and narrow as a teacher that I hadn't really had the opportunity to look at anything else. And it was just trying. And when I did the skills boot camp in project management, the lecturer who had me said to me, Sam, you need to sit down and look at what you've been doing as a teacher, because you were a project manager in the classroom. And when I actually sat down and went through it, lo and behold, yes, I was. And everything just linked, everything right down to scheduling, budget control when I took kids on trips, stakeholder management, all of those things just all connected. And once I'd done that, I was then able to go, right, I can now look at my CV and transfer all of that into a CV. And then I was able to get my narrative together, the way that I then sold myself in interviews. And within sort of 6 months, I had my first job in project management. And I was really, really lucky that the company that I went and worked for the first 18 months of my project professional career took a stab at me and said, let's have a go and see where you go. And then the confidence grew again. And I went, you know what? I want to be able to go back to Australia at some point. And I knew I needed a degree to go back to Australia. So I went, you know what? I'm going to apply for apprenticeships. And here I am today. So it's just that, it's that slow looking into things. And then sometimes it just takes someone to point it out to you, doesn't it? You can't see when you're right in it that you've actually got all of these skills.
Absolutely. And I can completely relate to that. So at the St James's Place Academy, we have career changes from all sorts of profession. The one that sticks out that I can relate to the most in what you said, Sam, is like people from the military, a bit like teaching. You almost have your own language and way of talking about the skills that you have. So if that feels like you, whether it's teaching military or something else where it's kind of its own world and its own language, then get some help. Did you get any help with your CV writing? Was it family, or was there professional help that you got?
No, I had professional help. So through the job that I was in, and also just other avenues that I had access to.
Fantastic. So yeah, just explore all of that. Get help if you think you need it, and it just builds confidence, as you said, Sam. So that's great. And Isla, how about you? You worked in many different things. So how did you pull together all those transferable skills?
Yeah, I think we always think of the technical stuff, don't we? The qualifications, and if anyone sees a job advert, I think there's been research studies into this. Like if you don't tick X number of boxes, we don't apply. And I think, Rob touched upon AI. AI is doing a lot of technical stuff now, but I would just emphasize EQ, that I think is something that's becoming more and more important. Two things: people buy from people and they always will. And people won't remember what you say, but they'll remember how you make them feel. So again, Rob, I meant to say last time, what you talked about being genuinely passionate for something really does come across. So don't forget that. Technical stuff can be taught and learnt along the way, but having EQ and the skill of communication, building teams, that's what really runs through. And like I said, I took sometimes off. I was a stay-at-home parent, if you like. I did bits and bobs working in between, and you lose a lot of confidence. Then I realized, again, it was someone else pointing it out to me, like you, Sam. It takes someone else to be like, hang on a minute, you're trying to tell me you juggle working in retail, managing a shop, teaching Pilates, raising 2 kids, your husband travels, the household. You're doing a lot, and you just don't see it sometimes because you're in it, you're in the weeds, and you don't see all these other amazing things you can do. Never mind the fact that I've still not forgotten stuff from, when in my law days and how to communicate. And I focus less on technical, more on EQ, and remember, if people like you and you can communicate, that goes a long way.
Amazing. And Rob, I'm just going to touch on the AI comment. I guess we're in an age where it's a fine balance between overusing and underusing AI, isn't it? Like we all have access to it. And obviously, I see CVs past my desk, and we have a 150 words. Why do you want to be a financial advisor on our contact form? And you see a lot of just what makes a great financial advisor into ChatGPT, copy paste, plug to the form, and we can spot it a mile off.
Yeah.
So I think using AI is a must, but tailoring it and personalizing it is even more important. So what advice would you give on that?
For sure. I think it's what you put in and what you get out, isn't it? So be really intentional with what you're using it for. If we're talking about pivoting and careers, and you really want to understand what are the common denominators of the skills here. Sam, you talked about teaching versus project management and just identifying what are the common skills that are under there. Sometimes people think of skills as these really big things that are almost jobs in their own right.
Yeah.
They're not. They're actually quite granular, and you can break them down. And so AI can help with that. But my advice is keep it personal and unique to you, because that output needs to reflect your unique trajectory, your journey, and the skills that you bring. And so when you're putting that down on paper, whatever you've used AI to support you, and we've got, if you look on the SAP website, we were, because of who we are, and we've got AI in the products, we've got a lot of guidance there for job seekers in terms of appropriate use cases of AI in applications. So you can go and read that on our careers page. But the output that you bring to the page and ultimately through the interview process, be thinking about how it reflects your unique, authentic self and, those unique experiences that you bring, because no one will have the combination of transferable skills that you do.
I love that. That's fantastic. Thank you. Now, when pivoting career, we can be struck by imposter syndrome and feeling quite vulnerable, particularly at the interview stage. So how can people talk about the fact that, they want a change that feels confident and compelling, rather like they're almost apologizing for something? So Isla, do you relate to that in any way?
Oh yeah. I can hugely empathize. Like I said, spend years studying and you're like, oh, I've not done, anyway, totally agree. But I think for me, it was the itch that I've already spoken about in this level. When I stumbled upon SGP Academy, I saw that. I was like, that's it, it fits. It became a really obvious move for me, but I think it's obvious because it was a good fit. So I could be really passionate about it. And again, Rob's articulated this beautifully. I really want this. This is my itch. This is my way in. And that's what I come across in an interview. Lean into it. Be personable. Kind of your path and your journey is your USP. And you really you've not been stuck in this job for decades. You're proactively seeking this, like Sam, upskilling to seek this out for this path. That's awesome. Like that change shows you're invested. If you spent time studying, you've invested that time. So I would flip that and flip it into a positive, going, no, I'm here because I've invested all this time, maybe money, paying for courses, etc. And I've really made this positive choice. So here I am. I think that'd be really awesome to come across in an interview.
Very compelling. Absolutely. Sam, anything to add?
I think, going in as yourself, as your true authentic self is the winner, but also being able to take it one step further and say to them, this is who I am. I can grow even further. Give me an opportunity to show you. Yeah. And, that sort of want to learn, I think, is so important in today's age, because businesses want you to not only come in and do a job, they want you to come in and be innovative and change and challenge the status quo. I hear that a lot. We want you to ask questions. We want you to go, well, why do we do it that way? Versus, oh, okay, yep, cool, that's great, I'll keep doing it that way. They want you to question. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So your view on things is a fresh pair of eyes, and it is hugely valuable, which is great. Now, Rob, you've already touched upon this with your own career moves. So career pivots can often come with practical challenges, such as a potential pay cut, starting at the bottom again, maybe in terms of seniority, retraining as you did, Sam, or thinking about something new. But what advice would you give somebody who wants to make the change, but they're worried about, let's talk about the financial risk first of all. Rob, I'll come to you.
That's really real. And I'm not supporting children or family, you know, and even for me, I felt the weight of that. So that is a very real thing, and it's important. When I left academia, it went down. I knew that it was going to go down. I was thinking about the longer term because I knew that the work-life balance and the opportunities longer term would in fact be greater. I saw the hours being worked for the reward in the current environment, and I just had to trust that I knew it was going to be better longer term. So you're not always going to get it, or at least for me, I knew that I was not going to get it immediately. So you have to be a bit pragmatic, and of course that can come with planning and anything that you can do to obviously budget and make practical changes in your life to bridge that gap. And it's having faith in what will be the case. And it's Isla, you mentioned this, about the value of talking to people and getting that first-hand experience of what life is actually like in that sector or that new career path. And so at least having the faith and knowledge that in time you will achieve what you need to achieve financially. But I totally feel that it's a very real and valid concern, so it shouldn't be brushed under the rug. You want to give it like conscious thought about how you're managing it, and then research to trust that you're going to get to where you need to be in the time scale that is right for you.
Such great advice. And the most common question we get asked at the Academy for people becoming self-employed for the first time is, how quickly can I earn X? And X is always what their current or previous earnings are or were.
Yes.
Right. So, and that number is different for everybody, and how they get there is also different for everybody. So we never have a straight answer for it, but really careful consideration. And if you do, if you're in a career, it doesn't feel right for you, start to explore things. The finances come up when you don't feel financially ready now. As you said, Rob, you can start saving at that point, but continue to move towards that new career that you want. It could be a qualification you're doing alongside your current role, and just feel it will. So if it's not right now, it can still be in the future if you prepare well. What was it like for you, Sam, in terms of that financial preparation?
So I was really reflective of sort of where we were as a family, where we had gotten ourselves. I wasn't just teaching, I was middle management. So I was a head of department when I left the career. So it wasn't just a small pay cut, it was quite a significant hit to our monthlies, if I can be honest. But I'm now 2 years into my apprenticeship, and I'm, a lot closer to that pay grade already. So it is a leap of faith, I have to admit. But it's also you just have to think you'll get there. It will happen. The pay will increase as you move through. But a definite thing that I made sure I had was just other streams of revenue for myself. So I marked the GCSE, which is a great little revenue stream. It's just for me. It's my own money. My husband lets me use that how I will. So I can keep, my car on the road and so forth. So it's just those little things of just looking at what you're doing already, and maybe there's other revenue streams that you can count on year in, year out that just top up those earnings so that the gap's not so big.
Absolutely. And Isla, you were already on a career break, so that takes financial consideration for the household in itself. Were there any concerns for you, or like what were your thoughts from a financial perspective?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was very much so a joint effort in our household between me and my husband. But because I was a bit more at home whilst doing other stuff, there was a rejig of household responsibilities. So it's still very much so a joint team effort in my household. There was a bit of the kids are getting older, but there is a bit of redistributing and a bit of a reset. But again, I think Rob and Sam have already covered this beautifully, but it's kind of, it is a very real question, but are you willing to put in the short-term pain for the potential long-term gain? And sometimes you get out of life what you put in within sensible decisions. So research like hell, absolutely. And there's no denying the first few years, whenever you start anything, if you start your own business, I'm self-employed, you're always going to have a couple years. It's just part of the process of building something, and it's just having your eyes totally wide open to that. I would just like to touch upon as well, I've always heard my husband got made redundant in lockdown, and it's funny, the friends I've spoken to, so many people said to me at that time, redundancy will be the best thing. Because when you're shoved out of that job, okay, you might have a redundancy package as a bit of a buffer. So that's like the savings you start. When you're shoved out of a certain job and you suddenly have a choice to make where you could choose your path, people tend to be often happier because they're not stuck in the job because it's paying the bills and they don't have that fear. So I would just use that as just a bit of a kind of token thought of when you're making these decisions. Yes, absolutely has to be thought about, but just remember, sometimes people turn redundancy into the best thing that's ever happened to them.
Absolutely. And I think what I've got from all of you is, you start here where your previous earnings were, you may be taking a dip. It's a certain amount of time till you're back where you are, but often then it creates more opportunity than you ever had in your previous role before. Or the work-life balance is so much better that your health is better. There's so many pros. So I guess it's planning for it, it's being patient and consistent and reaping the rewards of making the great decision afterwards. Yep. So I'm coming towards the end of my sort of set questions. I've got a couple more I'm going to ask you. So for those listening today that are ready to make a change but doesn't quite know where to start, what's one thing that you would tell them to do this week? Rob, I'm going to start with you.
I would say to remember that the first step, make any move actually, would be my advice. Like, to be brave enough to take that first step and not be scared that you have to be perfect first time, right? Because I think that's something that keeps us trapped, and that's quite a fear-based thing. So if they are on that brink, if you are wondering what to do, sometimes any movement is good. Any movement in a particular direction is good. You will have some intention behind you, and just to be brave to make that first step and not worry if that first step is not 100% perfect, because it's going to lead to you're moving in a direction, and it's something that it's a change that you're starting. So yeah, that would be my advice.
And what would you suggest, Sab? One thing this week?
Definitely research is the number one thing. Just have a look, just open up your laptop and go, you know what, I'm going to research. I'm looking into doing this. I'm just going to have a look. And the amount of, people that are out there that have done it themselves who can give you advice is many. So yeah, do your research, and also talk to your loved ones. Don't keep it bottled in. If it's something that you want to do, have that conversation and say, this is what I'm thinking, because that support is so important when you do it.
Fantastic. Isla, anything from you?
Just what Sam said, talk. And I covered talk, and I would extend it beyond the family, because they can be a similar mental journey as you go, but I would talk to others and be brave and stick it out there, and you'll be interested to what comes back. And I've already said it, tap at people on LinkedIn that might be totally strangers, but in your field, you never know what you get back. And if they ignore you, what's the worst that can happen? They ignore you, cool. Next one. But talk, I just think gathering all that information is really helpful and will really help people along the way. Definitely did me.
Amazing, thank you. And then the final formal question I've got here before I have a look in the chat is, if people are going to sit with one question for themselves that you want them to leave with, what question might that be? It might feel uncomfortable, but what is it worth asking themselves? Isla, have you got one?
Yeah, fast forward till you're that old age pensioner. Are you happy with the journey?
Love that. That's great. Rob?
I love that one, Isla. I think my one, okay, to counter that, my one would be a question about your current situation. Like, be really honest with yourself and ask yourself, what is actually keeping you in that role? And that should illuminate some of the things that you are missing.
Fantastic. And Sam?
Yeah, linking on to Rob's, is it worth it? Is what you're going through worth it at the end of the day? And I think they all connect, all those questions.
Absolutely. I actually have the privilege of hosting a career change podcast It's called The Switch. You can find it on our Financial Advisor Academy YouTube channel or on Spotify. And I've just got 2 episodes that are springing to mind with all of your answers today. One is an author called Mandeep Ryan. She wrote a book called The Values Compass. And in that episode, we discuss what your personal values are. How do you identify what they are? Because sometimes it's a values mismatch, which is causing the upset in the current role. Not just something obvious like family or whatever it might be. And I know you mentioned that, Sam, at the beginning, didn't you? So that could be super helpful for people. And another really interesting episode just sprung to mind with your answer just then, Isla, was with Rory Sutherland. So for those who are familiar with his work, he's a behavioural scientist, quite popular on TikTok, etc. And he suggested that people ask an inverse question. So I'm currently in this role and I want to move to this role. Would it make sense if I did the opposite? So the example he gave was about moving house. And he said there were a couple, they had £1 million house in London, and they were going to buy a £500,000 bigger house with a garden in Norfolk, and then the rest of the money was going to enable them to work part-time. So then if you literally put that in reverse, would it make sense? No, it probably wouldn't in terms of on paper. So have a real good, couple of exercises for yourself to think about some of these things. So I am going to have a quick look in the Q&A. I'm sure there are hundreds of messages, so bear with me. Let me just have a quick look here. Oh, I've lost the chat box now. Here it is. Scrolling all the way up. Oh, somebody said, I've pivoted and loved it. Love that, Helen. Well done. People only worked in one field and feel institutional. I feel like we did sort of mention that, didn't we? So even if you feel like you've got your own language, and everybody said, have some conversations, go and speak to some people and don't be scared of approaching them.
Yeah, that was going off what Isla said. Even from a recruitment point of view, everyone loves talking about their own journeys and careers. So, to what you said, Isla, about reaching out, yes, you'll get some no's, but you'll get you'll get so much value from one or two conversations that you do have. Yeah, absolutely.
I think what we'll do is we'll collectively review all these questions as a group, and what we'll do is we'll send out the answers to them with some hints and tips. What I will say is you are already a member of the Flexa Careers community. What an amazing website that the team have built there. And we've touched upon lots of topics today, and I feel like their website really helps you as users navigate the things you're thinking and what you're wanting from a career change by the way it's organized. So you can search for the things that are important for you. You can have a look at a company's culture. They have surveys and questionnaires that the employees have filled out about the business, not just the person listing the role. So you can really get a feel for what that culture looks and feels like. So do remember the organizations that we're all from. I'm going to give you a second each to just remind people where you're from and the types of roles that might be there so they can go and have a look. So Rob, tell us about SAP.
Well, SAP, big global software engineering firm. We have roles on both the tech side of the house and the go-to-market customer success side. As G said, you can use the Flexa platform to explore the benefits that we have and how those relate in, where you might be applying. And plenty of information and stories there from our employees. So you can get a real sense of the culture, the work-life balance, the flex, the kinds of things that really make people stay at SAP. And speaking as someone that has transitioned into SAP from a non-tech role, there's information there, really about the skills-based aspect of our hiring. And yeah, if you've got any questions at all, you can always get in touch.
Fantastic. And you seem so happy, Rob. So you're a great advocate for the business. And Sam, you as well?
Yeah, so I'm with BAE Systems, again, another global company. So we have experienced hires and the early careers side of things. So the website's the best place to go and have a look. Everything's there. And they're hiring, right across the UK.
Fantastic. And Isla?
Yeah, you'll probably do a much better job than me, G, at this. But I went through, so I'm a financial advisor with SGP, which is the largest wealth manager in the UK. And I went right through with SGP's academy. So I was supported with sitting exams and becoming technically and practically qualified to talk to clients. And the one thing I would like to emphasize is I went right through as a group. And again, you maybe get from my messaging from today is I'm a big advocate of being surrounded by good people and pooling and sharing ideas. And that's exactly what I did. There was a few of us that went through this together. And the one thing to emphasize was I'm now very good friends with them, and they stem from 20-year-olds into 60-year-olds, from carpenter to pilot to finance, to the breadth of previous careers is huge. I know someone said they're a PT, there's been PTs. The breadth of careers has been amazing. And actually, again, that is your USP, because financial advice is just talking to people. We've all got money. That's how we live our lives. We need to deal with expenses. That's what this job is. So therefore, your previous career, making your personality is your USP. And it's been fabulous. And I've loved the variety of people I've met along the way and continue to do so.
Fantastic. And with that imposter syndrome, what often happens when you change career, I call it skills stacking. So Isla, you're a financial advisor with extensive knowledge of the legal profession, as an example, or the yoga Pilates world, you know, and what challenges those types of people have. So use that to your advantage as well. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. We hope that you have got a lot of benefit from this. If anyone's interested in the St James's Place Academy that Isla has been through, we are going to share a contact form with you after this, as well as an event we've got coming up in London on the 16th of July. So if you'd like to come and see us in person and find out more, we'd love to see you there. But that's it from us. Thank you ever so much. Enjoy the rest of this very warm day.
Bye.
Bye.